Ever get that, like, prickly feeling? You know, like you're right on the edge of something, well, something you can't explain.
I know exactly what you mean.
Well, that's exactly the kind of story we're diving into today.
No, sounds intriguing.
It is. And unsettling, too.
Okay, I'm all ears.
Picture this. A little girl, just 11 years old, and suddenly things around her start moving. Furniture, objects, you name it.
Now that's a recipe for a sleepless night.
You got that right. But the truly strange part, nobody, not even her family, can figure out what's going on.
Classic poltergeist stuff, right?
That's what folks started to think, especially back then in the 1960s. This all went down in Scotland, a little town called Sauchie, and the supposed poltergeist. They nicknamed him Wee Huey.
Wee Huey, huh? Gotta love a good nickname. But what makes this case stand out, you ask? Well, it wasn't just whispers and rumors. We're talking multiple eyewitnesses, people you wouldn't expect to believe in, well, ghost stories.
That's what I find so fascinating about this one. I mean, we're talking teachers, doctors, even the local clergymen, all reporting the same unexplainable phenomena.
It's like something out of, well, like a movie or something.
But this was real life for a young girl named Virginia Campbell.
Virginia Campbell. Okay, so let's rewind a bit, set the scene for us. Who is Virginia and what led up to all this weirdness?
All right, so it's 1960, right? Virginia's 11, and she's just moved from, get this, rural Ireland to Sauchie.
That's a big change.
Huge, right? Think about it. New home, new school, heck, even a new language.
I can imagine that was a lot for an 11-year-old to process.
Exactly. And there's more. She had to leave behind her dog, Toby, I think his name was, and her best friend, Anna.
Oh, that's rough. Leaving your dog behind. Heartbreaking.
Yeah, it's pretty clear she was going through some, well, significant emotional upheaval.
I mean, you don't need a degree in psychology to see that. A kid in a totally new environment separated from everything familiar.
Right, right. And it's just a few weeks after this move that things start to, well, get weird. Here we go.
Yeah, the Campbell family starts hearing all these strange sounds, knocking mostly.
Knocking, like on the wall.
Everywhere. Walls, doors, you name it. And furniture starts moving.
Wait, hold on. Like moving on its own?
Yeah, no explanation. An object just like vibrating for no reason.
Okay, no, that's just creepy.
And the thing is, this activity, it always seemed to be centered around Virginia.
Ah, so it's following her.
Like a shadow almost. And get this, it wasn't just when she was awake. This stuff would happen even when she was asleep.
Whoa, even when she was sleeping. That's a new level of spooky.
Right. Imagine waking up to your pillow spinning on the bed while you're still laying on it.
Okay, I'm officially creeped out now.
So naturally, the family tries to figure it out. They check for anything logical, right? Pranks, vibrations from the coal mines, anything.
Makes sense. Got to rule out the explainable stuff first.
But nothing fit. So they reach out to someone they trust. Their local clergyman, Reverend T.W. Lund.
Ah, bringing in the spiritual authority. Yeah, Reverend Lund, like anyone, he was skeptical at first. Figured it was just a kid, maybe acting out for attention.
Right. That's a pretty common initial thought, especially back then.
Right. But what he witnessed, well, it made him question everything.
Oh.
What did he see?
Well, he saw a big, heavy linen chest rocking back and forth, like someone was pushing it. But nobody was near it.
Okay, that's pretty hard to ignore.
Right. And then there's a sideboard in the dining room. He sees it slide across the floor all by itself.
A sideboard, like one of those big, heavy pieces of furniture.
Exactly. And then, remember all that knocking, he goes to investigate the sounds coming from Virginia's headboard. And guess what?
What?
He feels vibrations with each knock, like physical vibrations.
So this wasn't just sounds. There was something physical happening.
It seems that way. It was like he was being forced to confront, well, the possibility of something beyond what he understood.
That's got to be a mind-bending experience, especially for a clergyman. And he wasn't alone. Dr. W.H. Nesbitt, a local physician, he also saw these strange events.
So now we've got a doctor in the mix, too. This is getting interesting.
It is. And Dr. Nesbitt, he backs up the story about the furniture moving. And he saw Virginia's pillow rotating while she was asleep, too.
Multiple witnesses, credible witnesses. This isn't just hearsay anymore.
Exactly. We have a clergyman, a doctor, and Virginia's whole family all seeing these bizarre things.
And that, my friend, is just the beginning.
Because things are about to get a whole lot stranger.
Oh, I bet they do.
Yeah.
And you know what's even weirder? This poltergeist, or whatever it was, it didn't just stay at home.
What do you mean?
It followed Virginia, like to school.
Seriously. The poltergeist went to school, too.
Well, the strange events did, at least. Virginia's teacher, Margaret Stewart, she witnessed some pretty creepy stuff right there in the classroom.
Okay, so what happened? Did the chalkboard start writing on its own? Or maybe the textbook started, like, flipping through pages?
Not quite that dramatic, but still unnerving. Imagine this. A quiet classroom, everyone's working, right? And then out of nowhere, the desk lid behind Virginia starts moving. Up and down, like a heartbeat.
Okay, that's odd. What did the other kids think?
I can only imagine they were probably a little freaked out. But wait, there's more. Later, during silent reading, Mrs. Stewart saw the same desk slowly rise a few inches off the floor before gently settling back down.
Okay, now that's just straight up creepy.
Yeah.
So what did Mrs. Stewart make of all this? I mean, she's a teacher. She's got to be a pretty rational person, right?
Oh, Mrs. Stewart was definitely a no-nonsense kind of lady. At first, she tried to dismiss it, thought maybe it was a prank, kids messing around. She even examined the desk, looking for hidden strings, magnets, anything that could explain the movement.
Did she find anything?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. There was no logical explanation for what she saw.
So even the skeptics were starting to believe. At this point, the Campbell family must have been going crazy. Did they try to, make it stop?
Well, they thought maybe a change of scenery might help. So they sent Virginia to stay with relatives in a nearby town.
Like a poltergeist timeout?
Something like that. But this force, whatever it wasn't giving up so easily.
So it went with her, even to her relative's house. It's like it was attached to her, not the house.
Exactly. The knocking sounds continued, and so did those trance-like states. It was actually while she was staying with her relatives that another doctor, Dr. William Logan, witnessed one of these episodes firsthand.
So we have another doctor observing these trances now. What was so special about Dr. Logan's observations?
Dr. Logan noted that during these trances, Virginia's voice would change. It became louder, almost guttural, as she called out for Toby and Anna. And remember how we talked about Virginia being a shy girl? Well, in these episodes, all that shyness vanished. She was almost assertive, even a little aggressive.
Like a completely different personality.
Exactly. It was almost like a Jekyll and Hyde situation. And remember how we talked about doctors setting up a camera?
Oh, yeah. To try and capture this poltergeist on film, did they get anything?
Oh, they got plenty. The camera recorded those incessant knocking sounds, the bed covers rippling as if someone unseen were messing with them, and most strikingly, Virginia, in one of those trance states, talking and yelling in this frantic, almost possessed voice.
Wow. That must have been really eerie to watch. So at this point, everyone's convinced something truly strange is happening. They've ruled out all the logical explanations, and they have this footage as proof. What did they do next? Did they try to talk to it, communicate with this?
Reverend Lund, along with 3 other ministers, decided to hold a service of intercession for Virginia. They wanted to pray for her and offer spiritual support.
So not an exorcism, but close.
Not quite. Exorcisms are a whole different ballgame. This was more about prayer and support, but the result, it was definitely not what they expected.
What do you mean? Did things get worse?
Oh, much worse. As soon as they began praying, the poltergeist activity, it went through the roof. The banging noises got louder, a strange rasping sound filled the room. Some people even reported hearing screams and babbling, all coming from Virginia.
So it didn't like the prayers. That's a creepy thought. I mean, what does it tell us?
Well, for one thing, it suggests that whatever was at work here, it wasn't just some random energy, right? This thing, whatever it was, it seemed to have some level of awareness, some intelligence, maybe it was even scared, threatened by the presence of these clergymen.
So it knew they were trying to help Virginia. That's a whole new level of strange. And a story like this, it can't stay quiet forever. Word must have gotten out.
News travels fast, especially in a small town. And this was a story that, well, it begged to be told.
Yeah.
It wasn't long before the press caught wind of Wee Huey and Virginia Campbell.
I bet that just made everything more chaotic.
Yeah.
Reporters, cameras, the whole 9 yards, huh?
Oh, absolutely. The Campbell house was practically under siege, with journalists clamoring for interviews and photographers hoping to capture some of the poltergeist activity.
So like a media circus.
Exactly. And as you can imagine, this frenzy only fueled speculation and theories. Some folks dismissed it as a hoax, a publicity stunt orchestrated by the Campbells, maybe even by young Virginia herself.
Well, I mean, an 11-year-old girl causing all this commotion, it sounds far-fetched, but I guess people would believe anything, especially with all the media attention.
Right. But here's the thing. The sheer number of witnesses and their credibility, it made the hoax theory pretty hard to swallow. I mean, why would respected members of the community, like a clergyman and a doctor, risk their reputations to back up a fabricated story?
That's a good point. So if it wasn't a hoax, what were people saying? Were there any other explanations floating around?
Well, there was this one researcher, George Owen, he was really into poltergeist cases. And he suggested a possible link between poltergeist activity and, get this, puberty.
Puberty.
Yeah. His idea was that the hormonal surges and emotional upheaval of adolescence, they could somehow create a kind of psychic energy. And this energy, he believed, could manifest as, well, poltergeist phenomena.
So basically, teenage angst, but with moving furniture.
In a nutshell, yeah. And Owen wasn't alone in his thinking. Some psychologists at the time also considered the possibility that Virginia was unconsciously causing these disturbances, maybe as a way to cope with all the stress and changes in her life.
So not intentional, but still stemming from her.
Yeah.
Kind of like a subconscious cry for help, manifesting as moving objects and spooky sounds.
Exactly. And then there was the spiritualist perspective, which was pretty popular back then. They believed that Virginia might have been a conduit for spirits trying to communicate with the living.
Oh, wow, like a medium. So we've got theories ranging from teenage hormones to spirit communication. It's like a paranormal buffet. But with all these theories swirling around, did anyone actually get to the bottom of what was happening to Virginia?
Oh.
Did the activity ever stop?
Well, after that intense prayer service, the disturbances seemed to quiet down a bit. They didn't disappear completely, but they became less frequent, less intense. And eventually, the Campbell family moved to a new home, leaving wee Huey and all the speculation behind in Sauchie.
So the mystery remains unsolved.
Pretty much. The Sauchie poltergeist, or wee Huey as they called him, it's one of those cases that leaves you with more questions than answers. It makes you wonder about things we just don't understand, about the power of the mind, the potential for things beyond our perception.
It's a reminder that sometimes, even with all our technology and scientific advancements, there are still forces at work that we can't explain, can't control. And those forces, well, they can be both fascinating and a little bit terrifying. So to our listeners, what do you think? Was wee Curie a restless spirit, a manifestation of teenage angst, or something else entirely? Share your theories with us online and be sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the mysteries that continue to baffle and intrigue us.